Yo, what's up guys? In this video, I'm going to talk about how I learned Hebrew in less than 3 months without ever knowing anything about Hebrew, never speaking the language, and not really being super good with languages. Before I moved to Israel, I did have like conversational Spanish. My Spanish has always been pretty good. My mom speaks fluent Spanish. I always had like I had a housekeeper growing up who would come once or twice a week from Guatemala, so I'd always hear Spanish in the house. I'm from LA, so like I heard a lot of Spanish just growing up, and I would always take Spanish in school. So like all of these things kind of conditioned me to learn another language, any language, and once you know more than one language, it becomes easier to learn other ones. So just a little bit of background. Hebrew is much different than English and Spanish. English and Spanish are somewhat similar. They're both romantic or romance languages, I think. English is a combination of a Germanic language and a Latin language. It's like a mix, whereas Spanish is just a Latin language. Hebrew is a Semitic language, so it's more similar to Arabic, and Farsi, I think, is also Semitic. Or is it, I think it's Hebrew, Arabic, and Aramaic are the Semitic ones. I'm not really sure. Maybe I just lumped Farsi in there. I could be wrong. But anyway, when I moved to Israel, right, I didn't speak any Hebrew. I knew zero Hebrew at all. Like I knew sus was horse, and I knew shalom was hello, and that's it. Like those are the two words that I knew. I moved there. I don't know fucking shit about shit, and I was just like, I'll figure it out when I get there. Like how hard could it be, you know? And lucky for me, it wasn't that hard because I think I lucked out with my strategy for learning. All right, so when I got there, I was very lucky to be able to join a program for new immigrants who want to join the military. Right, it's called Garin Sabar, which is like a group of 20 to 30 new immigrants from usually Western countries who move to Israel, and they're like fast track them into the army without having to deal with all the bureaucratic bullshit, all the fucking red tape, and it just kind of like helps them with different organizations that help give them money and just make their transition into becoming an Israeli citizen much easier. So I looked out with that. Now, one of the things that this program also offers is Hebrew courses or Hebrew lessons called an ulpan. Now, in my case, the group that I joined was full of people who either their parents were Israeli, so they spoke Hebrew, or they went to Hebrew school growing up, so they knew Hebrew already. Like I had the worst Hebrew out of everybody there, except for one guy who was also my roommate, you know? So like they put the guys with the two worst Hebrew together, and everybody else was just fucking talking all the time, didn't understand shit of what was going on. Now, during this time, I did try, but it's like when everybody around you speaks English, you're probably just going to speak English with them. You're not going to like go out of your way. Like if they're from fucking America, you're not going to speak Hebrew to each other if you're in Israel. You're just going to like naturally default to your easy language. So when I joined the military, which was about 3 months later, I knew the alphabet. I knew a couple words. Maybe not a couple words. I knew more than a couple words, but I was not able to like string the words together in a sentence without having to fucking think about it for like way longer than that would be appropriate for a conversation. So my judgment of like how I learned in 3 months, the first 3 months was me like learning the alphabet and a couple words here and there and just hearing it a lot. But I don't really start like my time of actually learning it until I actually started the military. Because when I was in the military, it was fucking all Hebrew all the time. And, you know, so the way that it works in the Army, or at least the way that it worked in my unit, I know some units are different, but my unit was very strict. And the sergeant that we had, like your sergeant in boot camp is like your fucking top guy. Like he yells at you. He's like the scary guy, right? And this was a scary dude for sure. But this guy, he was like, you're not allowed to speak English. You're not allowed to write in English. You're not allowed to talk to us in English. I don't want to hear you speaking English or you're gonna get punished. So I was like, fuck, like what do I do? Now, fortunately, in my squad, I had two guys. One of them was fucking fluent Hebrew speaker, And not only that, this guy was like an actual genius. Like one of the few people who I've met who's like, damn, this guy's fucking like, this guy knows everything. And then the other guy was also very smart, was one of these guys who had like conversational Hebrew and had a very big vocabulary from growing up in a, like going to Jewish school and fucking, you know, learning Hebrew, learning how to read, learning all this shit. So between the two of them, I had at least some people that I could ask questions to. So over, I would say maybe the first 2 months of the military, my Hebrew got much better, but it was still at the point where I had to think a lot about what words to say. Like, cause I had these two guys in my fucking squad who were like in the same room as me, and it was just too easy for me to fucking speak English to them and ask them questions and just really like default back to my mother tongue without having to, you know, force myself to speak the language I was trying to learn all day, every day, which is really the key. So what ended up happening, you know, and my Hebrew got better, like I said, like I would practice with the other Israelis there. They would try to speak English with me and I would have to tell them like, please don't speak English with me. I want to learn Hebrew and blah, blah, blah. And they accommodated, you know, they were polite after telling them a few times. But about 2 months in, I broke my hand, right? I went out with this Argentinian friend of mine who I had met before joining the program. Very cool guy. We don't really talk anymore, but you know, it's been a long time. But at the time, we were bros, right? And I joined the army. He still hadn't joined, but he wanted to join, and he eventually did join. But you know, we decided to go out. I went and visited him in Herzliya, which is this town maybe like 30 minutes from Tel Aviv. It's kind of like a nicer area. We have like Herzliya and Herzliya Pituach, which is like the really nice part. So anyway, one night we decided I was going to go visit him. I was going to stay with him for the weekend, and you know, we went to like some club, and you know, when you're in the army, you just like, when you go out, you get fucking hammered. It's just, I don't know why, just everybody gets hammered. There's no such thing as like, oh yeah, I'll just go have a drink and then go home. No, it's like, you go out and you fucking take shots and you drink vodka Red Bull and you come home and you're fucking blasted. And the next day you wake up and you have a fucking hangover and you have to deal with it. It's just, I don't know. It doesn't seem to only be an American military thing. Like that's just how it is in Israel as well. So we go out, we go to a club, we get fucking hammered. It's 3 o'clock in the morning and we are like leaving. We're like getting ready to go back. And my friend, his name is Roy. My friend Roy, he's kind of got like a little bit of a screw loose, right? He just gets this look on his face where he just starts fucking with people, and he does not stop fucking with them until he takes it too far. So we're like walking through the parking lot, and he sees this like group of, I think he sees like 2 or 3 like really hot girls, maybe like 2 really hot girls with 2 guys or 2 or 3 guys. And it was clear to me that like they were together, you know. I think they were dating or something like that. And the guy is like at his car. He's at the trunk of his car. And my friend Roy, he's like trying to talk to the girls, and the guy's like, come on man, fuck off, like they're with us. And then my friend Roy turns to the guy and he starts asking all these like retarded questions in Hebrew. He's like, where can I go get a falafel? Where can I go get a shawarma? You know, what's another club that I can go to? And the dude is just like not having it. He's just fucking pissed. I don't know like what his deal was, but he was just, like, I could tell he was getting angry. I'm just kind of standing there like, you know, I don't even know. Like I didn't even realize what was happening, I guess. But anyway, I remember the guy's at the trunk of his car, and my friend Roy is just like fucking throwing little pins at him. Like, what's wrong with you? Don't you want to talk to me? Is it because there's this word in Hebrew called aus, which means like, it's kind of like the Israeli version of like white trash, but not as harsh as white trash. Like it's almost like you're like proud to be aus, kind of. Anyway, it's complicated. He's like, is it because you're an aus? Like, what's going on? Why don't you like me? And finally the guy takes his trunk, fucking slams it down. He's like, shut the fuck up, you son of a bitch. And I'm like, oh my God. And he starts walking towards my friend Roy. And my friend's like, he's like backing up. He's like, no, it's okay. You know, I didn't, you know, relax, like, let's not do this. And so my friend Roy is walking like this. The guy is walking towards him. My friend's backing up. And then his friends are coming behind him as well, right? And it was 2 other guys, or maybe it was 3 other guys. I think it was 2 other guys. I don't know, 2 or 3 other guys. And then I'm walking behind all of them, right? And I see my friend Roy, he looks like he's getting ready to fight. And this guy is like pushing him and stuff like that. And I said to his friends, I was like, just keep it one-on-one, you know? That's all I said. I was just like, maybe I can get out of here with just my friend Roy, like punching or getting punched a couple times and then we can leave. And one of the guys, he was taller than me. He was kind of skinny, but he was like taller. I wouldn't say he was big, but he was like tall and skinny. He turns around and he goes, shut your fucking mouth. And I'm like, oh fuck, here we go. You know, I'm not gonna let my friend just fight 3 guys by himself. So I was like, okay, as soon as I heard that, I was like, all right, this is gonna be a fight. We need to win this fight. So what I did, I'm not proud of this, but what I did is like they were walking and I was behind them and basically I like fucking hooked this guy from behind and got him like square in the jaw and fucking dropped him, just like dropped on the floor. So that was that guy. His friend turns around and then we start fighting. I don't know. I didn't really know boxing that well at that time, but I hit this guy a couple times to the point where he was like also out. And then I saw my friend was like fighting this guy. And then all of a sudden I look over to the right and I see this just like massive fucking crowd of people running towards us. I can still picture it in my mind today. Like no exaggeration, there must have been at least 50, probably, I don't know, it's hard for me to think about how many people it actually was. I want to say closer to like 100, but I see this just like crowd of people running towards us. And I'm like, as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh fuck, like I'm about to fucking get my ass beat right now. So I see this giant crowd of people coming and somebody tackles me to the ground. This has nothing to do with how I learned Hebrew. Actually, I guess it does. So anyway, this guy tackles me to the ground and I knew a little jujitsu at this point. So I get him in the guard and I put my hands up and he's like, starts speaking to me in English. He's like, no, like I'm on your side. I don't want to fight. Like I'm here to help you. And I'm like, okay, so get off me. Like, what are you doing? And he gets up and he helps me up and he's like, listen, man, the cops are going to come. They're on the way here. You got to get out of here. So I was like, okay, cool, thanks. And I go with my friend Roy and we both kind of like, I remember seeing him, we're both like looking around like this, like looking for somebody else to fight. We got very lucky though. Like I don't recommend anybody ever do this, especially in Israel, because a lot of people have knives now and they fucking stab each other. So anyway, I got Roy and we fucking bounced, ran right to a cab, got in the cab and we're like, get us out of here. As soon as I get in the cab, I feel this really intense pain in my hand. And I remember looking at my hand, it was like on the fucking armrest of the taxi cab, and this shit is just like gigantic. It's like fucking huge, swollen, the skin is like smooth. So I was like, oh, that's not good, but I'm hammered anyway, so I was like, oh, it's probably just sore, like it'll be gone in the morning. The next day, it was not gone, it was fucking huge, and these 2 fingers were fucking fat and swollen. So I was like, all right, now I'm supposed to go back to the army that day anyway. So I pack my shit in the morning, go back to the army, and I tell my officer, I was like, listen, like my hand's fucked up. I got into a fight last night. I need to go see the doctor. And I go to the doctor, one thing led to another. It turns out my hand is broken. And the point of this whole story, I promise I'm getting to it, is that I had basically 5 weeks off during boot camp where I was basically at home, I was resting, trying to heal my hand, and I didn't have to go to the army and do anything because my fucking hand was broken. So they put a cast on my hand, and during this time, I was fucking on the kibbutz by myself, bored out of my mind, because like during the week, pretty much everybody was gone. And then on the weekends, different people would come back because everybody kind of had a different schedule. Some people would come back every weekend, some people would close 2 weeks, some people 3, some people more. So there's different people every week, but during the week I was fucking bored out of my mind. Now, the way that it works in Israel is that you have like your military ID allows you to take public transportation for free. So I was like, all right, I have all this time and nothing to do with it, so I might as well go see the country. Because I'd never been to Israel before. I'd never like fucking traveled there at all, other than the field trips that we would do in the program before joining the army, and like whatever random bases they would take us to, and maybe a couple trips to Tel Aviv, a couple trips to Jerusalem. But I'd never like actually gone and traveled and seen all the little fucking cities. So basically what I did is I took my fucking military ID, and the way that it works, I'm sure it probably is the same, but the way that it worked back then is you take your military ID, And in order for it to like work as, like, in order for you to not have to pay, you have to wear your uniform, right? So I would fucking put on my uniform, my dress uniform. I take my little military ID with my fucking broken hand and my gun, and I would fucking travel around Israel, like going to random cities, or just like look at the bus stop and be like, okay, I guess I'll go there. And when I was on the bus, sometimes I take the train, but when I was there, I would start conversations with people on the bus or the train, and I would say, how do I get to this place? How do I get to that place? And because I was a fully uniformed soldier with a broken hand, with a fucking thick ass American accent, people would naturally start conversations with me as well. So what ended up happening is I would have essentially 2 to 3 hours, or up to 2 to 3 hours of like one-on-one conversation time, Hebrew practice with people who I could ask them questions. I could say, how do I say this? How do I say that? They would teach me things, and I was just able to practice Hebrew without any sort of interruptions or English speaking other than clarifications of different words here and there. So I think it was either 4 or 5 weeks later, I ended up going back to the military, and everybody told me, they're like, wow, your Hebrew's so good, it's so much better, it's like crazy how good it's gotten, like, you know, you can have a conversation now. And that was actually true. I actually got to the point where I didn't need to think anymore about the words that I said. I didn't need to do the like English to Hebrew translation in my mind for every little thing. You know, sometimes whatever, you don't know a word, or it takes you an extra second. But it wasn't like, you know, you sit there and you're like, I want, you know, there were no like long pauses like that where I had to think of every single little word, what I wanted to say. And if I had not gone and got into that fight with my fucking Argentinian crazy ass friend, I probably would not have learned that quickly. So the lesson, I guess, for this video, I'm not saying you need to go out and fucking break your hand and fucking get time off from the army, but what I do recommend that you do if you are a new immigrant or you're a soldier is get on long bus rides and just start conversations with the people who are on the bus. Israelis are naturally curious people. You don't see a lot of immigrants from Western countries who ride buses. Most of them, in my experience, the Westerners who come to Israel, they either stay in Tel Aviv or they stay in Jerusalem. They're usually pretty spoiled. They usually come from fucking affluent backgrounds, and they don't ride the fucking bus. And they definitely don't ride the bus from fucking Tel Aviv to Haifa, for example. So you'll be kind of like a novelty. People will be curious and they'll want to know more about you. They'll ask you questions. And it's a great opportunity for you to not only see the country, but to practice your Hebrew in the meantime. Cool. Hopefully that was able to help some of you out there. I have been getting I get periodic requests for people who are like, can you tell me this about the army? Can you tell me that about Israel? Like, how'd you do this? How'd you do that? So I know it's a topic that some people want to know about. Hopefully that was helpful to you guys. If you have any other questions about, you know, I guess what it's like living there, I thought about making a separate channel, to be honest with you, because there are a lot of tips and little kind of insights that I know after having been through the whole bureaucracy and the military that I think would be very helpful to a lot of new people. But I don't live there now, so like, what's the point? But anyway, if you guys have any other suggestions for videos that you want me to take or that you want me to make, any sort of topic, subject matter, let me know, leave me a comment. Peace.